Hi, I'm in my intellectual era. I wrote an outline. And my thesis statement is this. I love Coco. Coco is one of my favorite movies. Not one of my favorite animated movies or one of my favorite Pixar movies, one of my favorite movies, period. Check my letterboxd. It's in the top 4. And I don't want a Coco 2. In this essay, I would.
Where should I put my shoes? Ay, mi amor, ay, mi amor. You say, put them on your.
Coco has a perfect, self-contained story. Here is a brief synopsis if you've never seen it, but you should see it. Miguel Rivera is a 12-year-old boy from Santa Cecilia, Mexico, who dreams of becoming a musician like his idol, Ernesto de la Cruz. His family has banned music for generations because Miguel's great-great-grandfather abandoned his wife and child, and subsequently the whole family, to pursue a music career. On Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, Miguel damages his family's ofrenda and discovers a link to de la Cruz. He thinks this might be his great-grandfather. So Miguel runs away from his family, steals de la Cruz's guitar from his mausoleum, and gets transported to the land of the dead. He meets his deceased relatives, including his great-great-grandmother Imelda, who will only give him her blessing to return to the real world if he gives up music, which he won't do. So Miguel decides to find de la Cruz, who he believes is also his family, to get his blessing to go home. On the journey, he meets Hector, who is desperate to get Miguel home so he can put Hector's photo on his family's ofrenda, because once he's forgotten by his living family, he's gone forever. On this journey, Miguel discovers that Ernesto murdered Hector, his real great-great-grandfather, to steal his songs and his fame. Realizing the truth, Miguel fights to get back to the living world to save Hector from being forgotten. He gets back just in time to help his great-grandmother Coco, Hector and Imelda's daughter, remember Hector through a song they used to share, Remember Me. Hector is saved and the Rivera family embraces music again, healing the generations-long rift. Miguel learns the importance of family, memory, and honoring those who came before. Even just reading that, I'm like, what if I started crying right now? The ending punches you in the gut. In a good way. I was sitting in a theater, sobbing, gasping for breath, surrounded by a bunch of sniffling little 5-year-olds and their parents, and everybody was feeling it. A sequel could undermine the emotional impact of the first movie, let me explain. At the end, the generational trauma is solved. Miguel can sing, and the mystery of his grandfather is solved. It's a happy ending. What conflicts could possibly come up in the future that wouldn't undermine Miguel's character or the familial bonds created in this movie? Miguel goes on this journey because his family doesn't understand his passion for music, dead or alive, and their unresolved rifts between family members. At the end of the movie, all of these issues are solved. If Miguel's descendants go on this journey as well, it undermines everything we know about his character and everything he went through in the first movie to just then turn around and act the same way towards his family. It undermines his character, suggesting that he would make the same mistakes his family made with him. And if it's a separate character, totally removed from Miguel's family that goes into the afterlife, that just takes away from the special sense that his journey had if everyone is just going into the land of the dead. But Coco 2 is not an isolated event. Here is the bigger problem. Hollywood's sequel obsession.
You make me un poco loco.
I'm just going to throw out some titles of recent movies so we can kind of compare in bulk how many Disney live-action remakes there have been and how many Disney Pixar animated sequels there have been compared to new and original movies. Okay? So for Disney live-action, since 2020, Mulan, Cruella, Pinocchio, Peter Pan and Wendy, The Little Mermaid, Mufasa the Lion King, Snow White, Lilo and Stitch. And movies that have been announced: Hercules, Moana, Bambi, The Aristocats, Robin Hood, and Tangled. And you might be thinking, oh, that's not too much, but if we go back just to 2019, 1 year earlier, here are all the live actions released just in that 1 year. Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, Lion King, Aladdin, and Dumbo. That was just in 2019. Okay, whatever. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, for Disney Pixar original movies since 2020: Onward, Soul, Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca, Encanto, Turning Red, Strange World, Elemental, and Wish. And announced movies are Elio, coming out in a few months. And now for the sequels, live action or animated. From 2022 on, we have Lightyear, Hocus Pocus 2, Disenchanted, Inside Out 2, and Moana 2. And ones that have been announced are Freakier Friday, Zootopia 2, Toy Story 5, Ice Age 6, Frozen 3, and Coco 2. Other production companies are following suit, with the live action How to Train Your Dragon coming out later this year and a new Shrek movie being announced. I know that you guys saw the animated teaser. So why are sequels and live actions a bad thing? First, they feel creatively bankrupt. Answer me this. When was the last time a sequel or a live action or a remake brought something new and good to the table? How about the last time someone liked one? Was it Frozen 2? Inside Out 2? Maybe the live action Cinderella? Or the live action Aladdin? Those are movies that I liked. I've talked about them on this channel before. But think back to that list. There are so many movies like this coming out that nobody wants. And even if they're fine and they're not bad, are they good? Are they adding on to the original story in a meaningful way or tackling it from a new angle? These companies aren't putting money into new ideas or behind new stories. They're capitalizing on nostalgia. These companies and executives are relying on the fact that us as the viewer still hold nostalgia for the original content, and that nostalgia will simply be enough to get us to buy a ticket to see the remake, even if the remake isn't bringing anything new to the table, and even if the remake isn't even as good as the original. They don't care. It's all about the money. It's not about crafting a compelling story. Which leads me to the next point, because not only is it creatively bankrupt, it's literally bankrupt. It's a cash grab. New movies aren't bringing in enough sales. Like I said, they know people will go see sequels purely because of the nostalgia they hold for the original content. Even if this new movie isn't good or necessary and people don't even like it, they don't care. They just want people to be interested enough to spend money on a ticket. I'm generalizing all of these movies into originals versus sequels and remakes, but audiences and critics tend to prefer original content, and the only remake movies that are rated higher than the original by audiences are Aladdin, The Jungle Book, and The Little Mermaid. I'm telling you guys, the live action Aladdin actually kind of did something. Even if audiences and critics alike still usually prefer the originals, these films still generate a lot of money. The live action version of The Lion King managed to earn over $2 billion worldwide during its original release, where the original animated film made about $1.6 billion adjusted for inflation. So it's all about growth in sales. It's not about integrity. It's not about creative integrity. Personally, I think 2020 was a big shift for these companies. Movies that came out during that time, like Onward, Soul, Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca, Turning Red, these are some really good movies. I watched all of them and I like all of them and I love Luca, but these movies came out straight to streaming because obviously theaters were closed. Obviously, they're not going to make as much money as a theatrical release. It's taken time for people to get back into theaters, but I do think we're in a good place right now. I don't even like movie theaters, and I've been seeing movies in theaters. And I've also been seeing a lot of people post about the fact that they're like, I'm bored, so I'm just going to go see a movie in a theater, get a little snack and a drink, and it's so fun. I think we're finally past the pandemic, the writer's strike, there's good movies coming out and people are back in theaters. However, companies don't care. They're not taking any of that into account. They're just looking at the numbers. And the movies being released recently, live actions and sequels, have been getting better numbers. So that's what they're prioritizing. However, not all remakes are guaranteed success. Despite their success in nostalgia-based content, Pixar cannot rely on existing franchises forever. This is clear in the case of Lightyear, the 5th film in the Toy Story series and the studio's first film to be released in theaters after the pandemic. Lightyear failed for Pixar because it contradicted existing lore and lacked important character dynamics. In some cases, creating additional content, whether a sequel or prequel, betrays the specifics that made the original film impactful. The film's earnings reflected this notion, just barely surpassing its budget of $200 million. Box office disappointment for a Pixar film, which, by the way, I went and saw it in theaters. I don't remember any of it. Like, that's how unimpactful it was. Okay, so I'm done hating on sequels and remakes for a minute. Let's talk about why original stories matter.
To a melody played on the strings of our soul.
Animated movies that put artistry and storytelling first are refreshing, and you can feel that. Audiences and critics. Some recent original animated movies that received critical acclaim as well as audience love. Wolfwalkers, nominated for Best Animated Feature at Academy Awards and Golden Globes. Flow, we love Flow here. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, it won the Oscar for Best Animated Short. And if you've never seen that, you really should, because I watched it at Christmas and it made me cry. And then the whole like Spider-Man Spider-Verse series that's going on, those are crazy good. And I know Spider-Man isn't a new idea, but this story is new, and the animation, it feels very new and almost like experimental for such like a mainstream movie. And let's not forget the other Disney Pixar movies that were released that I love. Encanto, Luca, Raya and the Last Dragon, Elemental. I don't get why people are hating on these movies. I think these are some of Pixar's best movies. And yet these are the ones being compared against the sequels. And they're like, they didn't make enough money. Everyone hates them. Who is everyone? Fantastic 5-star movies. I rewatch them all the time. Win or Lose, Pixar's new animated series, straight to Disney Plus. So amazing. Another 5 stars. It covers 1 week between a softball playoff game and the softball championship game, but each episode is from a different perspective, from like a teammate or a parent. It got an 87 from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a 91 from audiences. It was genuinely so good. Okay, back to Coco. Coco was so powerful because it was a new personal story. Was this movie written by AI? Did AI write this song? These are real comments that I've seen in regards to recent movie releases, and I'm sure you've seen them too if you're on TikTok or probably other corners of the internet. Even if these movies and these songs were written by real people, it's very telling that the heart has been taken out of the movies. An example of this, I think, would be Wish. This movie was supposed to be a celebration for the 100th year of Disney. I couldn't even get through the first half, and I love a good Disney princess movie musical. It had strange pop songs with no real meaning within the context of the movie. They didn't move the story along at all. And they also had a star character, I think, in hopes of getting a marketable plushie. Depending on how deep you are into Wish lore, you might know that originally the character of the star was supposed to be Star Boy, but it was changed to just a literal star to have like a marketable plushie for kids instead of Star Boy that like audiences could have connected to and our main character could have connected to. Next example, Moana 2. Bad songs and no coherent story, because this was just supposed to be like a Disney Plus series, and you can totally tell that in the movie that they just crammed a bunch of different episodes together. Also, the villains in this not being fleshed out at all or even really shown compared to the incredible villain of the first movie. All this to say, these movies aren't trying to expand on the original stories or characters in some sort of meaningful way. They're trying to check things off a marketing checklist. Viral song, check. Marketable plushie, check. Pixar is a good example of someone who used to capture this marketability organically. Toy Story, Up, they put heart into the movies, and audiences related to that and then naturally gravitated towards the merch. It seems like Pixar's current CEO realized this and promised to balance the release of sequels with new original content. In a quote, he said, "The current strategy involves 3 movies every 2 years, with every other one being a sequel or spin-off, while the rest are standalone concepts or potential seeds for new franchises." However, Disney doesn't seem to share this view, with every recent release or announced release since Wish being a live action. I know that technically Disney owns Pixar, Disney Animation, Searchlight, 20th Century Fox, Lucasfilms, and Marvel, and some of those companies are releasing original content like the Pixar movies that we just talked about, but I'm specifically talking, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the Disney princess movies. And I couldn't find anything that suggests that like a new Disney, like a new true Disney princess movie or anything else is in the works besides the live action and remakes that I read off earlier. So in conclusion, I don't hate sequels. There have been some good sequels, and I think some stories can benefit from having a sequel that expands on everything that was established in the original movie. However, I do hate that it feels like every single movie these days is a sequel or a remake, because there are still more original stories to be told. I hope this made sense. I did real research for this, and I felt like I was in high school. I felt like I was back in AP English doing a little outline for my research paper. I'm in my intellectual era. This is just my opinion, supported by facts to back up my opinion. Let me know what your opinion is. I'd be curious to know what you guys think about the live actions and the remakes and the sequels. If you think they're good, why you think there are so many, or if you don't think there are enough. Like this video if you liked it, leave a comment if you feel called, and I will see you next week.
Remember me, though I have to say goodbye.